Welcome, y'all. I know we just seen y'all, but we already back. It is Chris Tipmore with my guy, Smooth Smitty 10K, and we are back to talk about some more Atlanta Hawks. And we're not alone. You may have seen this guy before. You may have, may not. But regardless, he keeps it real about the Atlanta Hawks. And I'm talking about ATL and 29's own Glen Willis. How you doing, family? Welcome to the show.
I'm
First
good. I'm
time
ready
on the
for this
platform.
draft to happen so we can talk about what happened, and as opposed to kind of all of this fighting that's going on about what should happen. But hopefully we're having a little bit of fun along the way, but ready for the draft to get here.
Indeed. So again, like we said, man, you're from ATL and 29. We want you to really just put your channel out there, really just tell the Hawks faithful who possibly may not know you exactly like who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I did some work for a number of years with Peachtree Hoops. Supported those guys, did some writing over there. That doesn't really fit my schedule anymore. I still support those guys and want to lift them up and kind of bring them exposure. And at one point in time, I had a national NBA podcast that had some success for a while. But now it's hanging out with Kevin and Tyler over on the ATL and 29. We record once or twice a week, depending upon how newsworthy the week is and all that sort of stuff. So and then just always enjoy conversations about the Hawks with all the different people on Twitter or X, whatever you might be calling it these days. So, I try to lean a bit on my coaching background to I'm more interested in kind of the technical aspects of the game, but really fascinated with roster building and news and room. I mean, we all, kind of tap into all those sorts of things too, to kind of see what the Hawks might be doing. And I think we're going to learn a lot about what the Hawks want to look like in the next season. We'll get the first glimpse of that here in a couple of days, I think, and it's going to be exciting to kind of see what that is. But as I said, I'm on Brad Rowland's pod now and then, and I try to drop into others, and I just like the last year, like you guys and Bryce and the Hawks podcast community is just getting stronger and stronger, and there's so much quality content being put out there. You guys are right up there. I enjoy you guys' product a ton, your content a ton. It's just so cool to see kind of all that come to fruition, and I just want to keep lifting. Everyone just works so hard to put good content out there, including you guys. And so a big part of me is, as opposed to kind of promoting myself, is to promote the broader group of people working really hard to put good content out there, because it's a really good group.
Thank you so very much
Absolutely.
about that. We really appreciate that, and that's what it's all about. Just growing the fan base, the content creator, really just fellowship and community. Like period. Like I didn't know, like a year ago to this day, I didn't know it was so many like Falcons or Braves or Hawks, some creators, and just to see the growth that it's had a year from now, a year from then, it's just amazing. It's really amazing, and we enjoy your content as well. We definitely just trying to fit everybody in, and we've already had Bob Rathburn, Steve Holman on. We've had other content creators on as well, so it's just great to bring it all together. And as we're getting closer to this draft, just to have this content to talk about. And it's great that the Atlanta Hawks are a topic of discussion regardless, because normally we're not, right? So, but yeah, man. So I wanted to talk about this Alex Sarr report, man. I wanted to get your take on it. And how do you feel about, the Hawks not being able to lock in a workout, even though he's right here in Atlanta? And, just the reports of him possibly preferring Washington over our Atlanta Hawks. Like, what's up with that? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to me because it's always hard to know, how much truth there is in that stuff, because there's what his reps might be saying, what his reps might think in terms of the best place for him to kind of go somewhere and be featured right away, right? As the guy they're going to build around, be seen as kind of the centerpiece, right? That's not necessarily available in Atlanta right now, right? And so it might just be more of what his reps, I think. When you hear him talk, when you've heard him do interviews, he's had nice things to say about his time in Atlanta. He's had, positive things to say about the Hawks. And I have to think they spent some time with him, during the combine week, and got to know him and kind of doing their homework and things like that. So I know the reporting seems to suggest that he's not as likely to be someone they target as a few other guys that are projected to go at the top of the class. But I would think they don't have the door totally shut to that. Even if the reporting does suggest that they're going to go in a different direction. It's so hard to know, because for me, when I look at Sarr, just as a 19-year-old who has the size and athleticism he has, it's a rare combination, right? Guys like that just don't come along that often, right? But at the same time, to think about taking him first overall, you have to project a lot of offensive development, right? Can he shoot at some decent volume, right? Can he develop some self-creation? Can he be a secondary creator, a connective kind of player? And it's so hard to look at a 19-year-old who's that size and feel like you can say, yes, he will become that, or no, he won't become that, or he'll become half of that, right? And so I do think teams have to kind of really feel like they have a read on how much their own development program is kind of help him to kind of move along offensively. And that's what I think makes him such an interesting guy to think about. But you talk about kind of just the raw tools he's going to show up with the first day of his NBA career. They're pretty unique.
Indeed. I like Sarr, man. I think he gives the Hawks a lot of upside. He's versatile, especially on the defensive end. And I know he has offensive upside, and he has to work on his offensive game some, because to me, he doesn't look comfortable shooting the three. He is tall, but it just doesn't look like fluent. Like, Wemby looked like he was comfortable to me compared to like Sarr when I see the shooting. But also, for Sarr, man, I like him. I like everything that he possibly could be, especially if you keeping Trae Young, and what he can possibly help on the defensive end again, because defense has been something I've been wanting for the Atlanta Hawks for the longest. So I'm more intrigued about him on the defensive end, being able to guard multiple positions. But I had a theory, and I'm gonna run it past you as well, on why I feel like it's even like reports even being put out there, just because of Bill Duffy is the agent of Alex Sarr, is the agent of Luka Doncic, was the agent of Al Horford back in 2015. And he doesn't have the best relationship with Atlanta. I do believe that it is some reports and some negative vibes being thrown out there by the agent of Alex Sarr, Mr. Bill Duffy. Then you also have Travis Schlenk, who is now in Washington. They could be asking, hey, how was your time in Atlanta? Oh, it was cool until this, that, and the third started happening. And then next thing you know, I had to move on. It's just the Hawks being trapped between a rock and a hard place to me, with the Bill Duffy and possibly reports being put out by him, or him being in the ear of his clients. And then also you have Travis Schlenk over here, who was previously in Atlanta and can probably tell you exactly how his time was, and maybe even say, hey, they're not doing what they're doing in Atlanta. You can come on over here. We can bring you along. You won't be as much pressure on you to perform, because, the Wizards are worse off than the Hawks. Like, what do you think about that, though? I know it's kind of conspiracy a little bit, but that's just where I'm at with it, man. He's the common factor, that Bill Duffy, a sports agent.
Yeah, well, one could say there's some conspiracy kind of in that too, but the reality is it's a messy business. And what you're describing is the messy business that it is, right?
Right.
Agents want to steer their guys to certain places. Agents themselves, you kind of started to kind of hit on it. Agents have good relationships with some front offices, not so good relationships with other front offices. An agent who feels like I have a good rapport with this front office when that rookie scale contract is starting to end up, and if that agent has a better relationship with the front office, he's going to feel like he or she's going to feel like they have a better chance to kind of go get that that extension or whatever it is, and right. Just like every business, it's a human business. There's a human element to it, and that stuff shows up. There have been times that teams have just said, I'm not going to worry about that, right? I'm just going to draft the guy who's going to help me the most, and arguably, I've been, Hugh. I think for me, I could see some logic for the Hawks going a different direction, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. But at the same time, if you pass on Sarr and he hits his offensive potential, 3 years from now, it might not. Your choice might not look that great. I don't really worry about. I don't really worry about hindsight being 2020. But at the same time, my job is not this. Picks like this have job implications down the road, right? They just do. Like you're picking first, they just do. And so you have to think that, Landry and the rest of the group there is thinking like, part of this is the optics of, did we hit this? Did we make the right choice and things like that? And for me,
Yeah.
what's different now than it was, say, 2 years ago is if you look at what they did with College Park last year, you look at what Ryan Schmidt did. I mean, they have a real honest to goodness development program now. And so I feel like you take a guy like Sarr, who's pretty raw offensively right now, and I think the development ecosystem is there to help a guy like that develop and come along and kind of give you things that you need. If all the downplaying we've heard from, like, it feels like months. I know it hasn't been that long, but it's felt that way, right? All the downplaying of Hawks aren't going to take Sarr, and we'll see if that's actually how it goes. Not like we all follow all the guys who have source reporting and all that sort of stuff, and it seems like there's not a lot there. But to pass on that is I think is a tough move. And if you read the reporting the last 48 hours, potentially the Hawks are looking to trade back and get a little bit more value, and maybe there is someone who would trade up for Sarr. There's some noise that someone might trade up for Klingon, so it's going to be interesting. Right. I do think one has to worry about Sarr ended up being like twice as good as anybody else in this class 4 years from now. If he really hits a really, really high potential outcome, especially on the offensive side too.
Facts. Right. And I'm glad you talked about the business aspect and the future. And the future is key. And I said this draft, if not hit in a certain direction, could set the Atlanta Hawks back a good little bit. And you got to know Trae Young got to factor into this pick, because in a couple of years he comes up for a new deal. How much do they factor Trae Young into this pick? And really, how do they factor their future into this pick? Because you got three guys you can build around now in DJ, in Trae Young, and in Jalen Johnson. So how do they factor all that into their pick on Wednesday night at number one?
Yeah, it's such a great question, and Trae, like for the first time ever, has really started talking the last few months publicly about, well, I want it to happen here, but if it's not going to happen here, and I'm paraphrasing him, but that's basically the messaging he's been putting out the last few months is that if it's not going to happen here, and that's where I know that all of us have kind of read all the work of others who really kind of report on these guys. But Sarr's not an advanced screener right now. Trae really needs someone who's advanced in the screen game. He's really had the luxury of working with Capella for a number of years now. And Sarr's going to need, probably a year or so to kind of develop all of that, right? What Sarr has that Klingon doesn't have is Sarr's speed from the point of the screen to the front of the rim is Capella has been, you had speed, right? That's starting to disappear a little bit last few seasons as he's getting older.
Right.
Yeah. Congo, the speed, right? And he's had kind of pick and roll partners that could put pressure on the rim quickly. That's not what you get with Klingon, right? Klingon doesn't have that type of athleticism, but you get it with Sarr. But Klingon is pretty advanced as a screen setter, right? And so, Klingon's game, I think it's fair to say Klingon's game is more NBA ready. But I also think sometimes when we say that, or when one says that, you forget how hard the NBA is for rookie centers, especially. The foul trouble, right? The complexity of the scheme, how much more quick the ball moves at the NBA level than it does at the college level, the pace, how fast NBA offenses get into their stuff, that's a lot even for a guy who looks more NBA ready in Klingon. And so I feel like sometimes we're talking about Klingon like you can throw him out there and get 25 minutes of quasi starter level, and I don't think that's what his rookie season is going to be. I think if you take Klingon, you're saying I value elite rim protection at a very, very high level, right? And because that's really the primary. That's feels like 60% of what he's giving you that you're going to kind of just really bank on is that you're going to have, one of the in I don't know, a year or two, you're going to have one of the 10 best rim protectors in the league, maybe even a shorter list than that, right? And but at the same time, like we just saw the Celtics walk right through the whole playoffs playing 5-out offense, and I thought Dallas would, as I said on the record, I thought Dallas would win that series because I thought Dallas would just be more physical. But as good as Gafford was, as good as Lively was, all the other the those guys were borderline useless against the Celtics. And so
Yep.
people are saying, now hang on, like Klingon going up against a what OKC is doing with 5 out, what Boston's doing with 5 out, what probably Orlando's going to lean that way with Banchero playing some 5 going forward. Houston, with Jabbar, you're seeing more and more push that way. And the people who are saying, now hang on a minute, like is Klingon going to work when we run it, if and when we run into that in the play? And that's a great question. And that's something where you feel like, okay, with Sar, I have something that he can give me some rim protection. He can give me some flexibility. He can defend on the perimeter. He can get to the level of he can do a number of different things defensively. And that makes for a nice debate to have, as long as we're all being thoughtful in our debate. I love having that debate.
Yeah, indeed. I enjoyed that. I shoot, just the way you just broke it down is just really give or take. Each player has a strength, each player has a weakness. I mean, that's just the elementary of it all. But I like Sar because of most of those reasons you're just saying. I mean, he is versatile. You could possibly run Sar and JJ out there. It may be some instance you may see some DeAndre Hunter out there too if he's kept. But the whole thing is creating some defense and building a defensive wall that's going to be able to execute properly, against some of the best offenses. Just like you're saying, running 5 out, you got all these guys clinging. You bring him in. I can't imagine him guarding Porzingis, because all Porzingis is going to do is stand at the 3-point line, and then that just neutralizes your inside presence. Easy. So that is something to think about, man. And I got a question. Do you think that this front office has the stones to still take Sar at number 1, even with the certain reports going on, even with looking at other players? Do you think guys still, like, if it comes down to it, look, I know what they're saying. I know what Bill Duffy may be saying, because you can't talk to Sar without talking to Duffy. I understand all that. But does this Atlanta Hawks front office still take Sar anyway, regardless of reports, or regardless of what any agent feels?
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny because we all hear on Twitter, or where we all hear from Hawks fans who are just like, they're going to screw it up. They're going to. I mean, that seems to be kind of the overwhelming kind of mindset that the Hawks fans have. And I'm more of a, let's see what they do. Let's see what they do. Let's see what they do. And I understand the track record, has been mixed. I've talked about the fact that since their Eastern Conference Finals run, I think their biggest issue has been they've been basically resetting the plan every 18 months. So that just does not work, right? But for me, I think the Hawks are looking at this and you're hearing reports about, well, if they want Klingon, they might try to trade back to get Klingon and squeeze more value out of the pick, right?
Right.
And there's been some buzz just in the last 24 hours about, Matas being a guy that they might want to kind of trade back and see if they can kind of get him. And he's an interesting player too. But for me, like, I think if no one makes a really, really bold move to go up and take Sar, I think you take Sar. Right. And now if their mindset is, we've really looked into this and we aren't confident in him developing offensively the way we need him to, that's their evaluation. They have to lean on and trust and all that sort of stuff. Right. So we're not in the room with them to see like all the things that they're looking at and evaluating that and who's part of that conversation. We're on the outside of that. But for me, it just seems like, some team would be willing to kind of make a move there. Now, it seems like Washington's not really buying that the Hawks are going to take Sar. There's so much other reporting and stuff. There's so much noise about, Reed Shepherd being a guy that teams are really want to kind of jump up and kind of get him too, and things like that. And so it's really cloudy, but, it's a great question. And I think for me, taking Klingon at 1, if you have a chance to say trade back, get another pick in the top 15 or whatever it might be, if that's your guy, I think you've got to try to extricate more value out of this draft than just taking him at 1. Now, I love his rim protection. I love that part of his game. Just like we already talked about, like, there are some settings in the NBA where it's just like, I don't think he's going to work, against this team who does this, and you have to really think about that. So it's, for me, the Hawks Sar stuff has been so quiet. Like, there's been nothing, like, literally nothing there. And you hear some reports Sar doesn't want to play. I haven't heard Sar say that. So I don't know. I don't really want to kind of lean too much into just thinking that's a given. But for me, like if no one makes the move, you take the best player. And for me, in terms of like but NBA teams who feel like they're kind of close, right? And do the Hawks feel like they're kind of close? I don't know, right? But sometimes you focus on a really high floor player. Like Klingon to me is a high floor player, right? Not that Klingon might develop 20, 30% more, right? And that to me, that's where I would kind of put his room to grow being more in that range. Where with SAR, 100, 150% growth is potential across 2 years, whatever, and so you kind of think about that, and it's hard to know, but it'll be interesting to see if they're just like, okay, nobody like made us a great offer for number one. I guess nobody wants to go up and take SAR. All you teams who thought you could get him at 2 or 3 or whatever, we're just going to take him and we don't, That would be, I think, a good outcome for the Hawks. I think there's multiple good outcomes, but that would be one for them.
Absolutely. Right. Their key free agents going into this offseason, a lot of one-year contracts, such as Garrison Matthews. You have Sadiq Bey, who's a free agent who they spent a lot of second-round picks on. Is there one guy that they must retain to keep this thing intact? Their glue guy. Do you see one of these one-year contract guys that they have to re-sign to keep on this team, to keep the jail together, to help with the locker room, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I know when you talk to Hawks fans, you get a lot of different opinions on Sadiq Bey. I thought he was progressing a lot defensively this past year up until like the last, say, 6 weeks before he got hurt. I thought he was starting to really kind of find his way defensively more so. I agree. And so I don't think he's going to play until like February. So to me, that's just a really complex contract situation. What do you do with a guy who's a restricted free agent and all that sort of stuff? So, I mean, you could just give him the qualifying offer. He might just take it, whatever it might be. But I know Quinn, I know you guys heard it. Like Quinn praised him the whole season, right?
Yeah.
And what I love about Sadiq is he plays so hard. He plays so hard, right? And so for me, but the injury does make that hard. Like, what do you offer? What does he accept? Does he, he's not going to get to play a lot this year, so he's not going to say he would be an unrestricted free agent next summer, right? So he's not going to get to play a ton to kind of build that value back up this year,
right?
And so I do hope they bring him back. I think Veet is another guy that was doing a lot of the stuff that Quinn wants from his wings to do, and so he's he's a free agent, and I think bringing him back just makes a ton of sense. He was one of their best down the last 2 months of the year. He was one of their best on-ball defenders. And in terms of offensively playing, as Quinn calls it, on the catch, where he gets the ball on the weak side and makes a decision, just go. Like that's what Quinn wants, that quick processing and all that sort of stuff. So he's up there. But I thought Garrison, helped them as a reserve guy too. I think the funny thing about Garrison is he had to play a bunch of small forward. He's like what? They list him, I think, at 6'5", and he's what? 6'2", probably. Really?
Yeah. 6'4" at the highest. Yeah. He's not 6'5".
He can't play small forward, But I mean, he took charges. He got better. He got better in the nuanced parts of defense. Again, another guy who played hard. But for me, like there were times he was their 7th best player in a given game. When Jalen was hurt, when Hunter, and you want if you're going to try to be a top 5 team in your conference, you want him to be more like your 9th best guy, But I think Sadiq deserves some loyalty from the organization if they can find a contract value that works for an interim period to kind of get him back to where he's healthy and then let him kind of see what he can do. I think Garrison deserves to be back as a bench piece. I think Veet deserves to be a pretty big focus for them as a depth piece. And they kind of going from there.
His name. Landry mentioned his name in that interview. And I think he can.
He did. We talked about like core guys. He threw his name out there, right? So, so for me, I think all of, and even like you think about a guy like on the team like Bruno, right? Where Bruno's not some world beater center, but if you're going to try to say trade Clint, like Bruno's competent enough just to kind of give you some time as a backup forward that he's going to give you a certain baseline level of just basic competent play. And so I think the Hawks, in a sense, are lucky to have these guys who can kind of be your 6 through 11 guys, because you're working through, are we going to trade DeJounte Murray or not? right? Are we going to, are we going to trade Clint Capella or not? Are we going to trade DeAndre Hunter or not? And when you have these other pieces that know what Quinn expects, showed you a decent amount of a buy into what Quinn is asking for, those guys as a secondary group can kind of just buy some time for you to work in, say, new pieces that come through the draft or maybe come through a trade, right? And so for me, I would like to see all those guys prioritized. But to me, if the Hawks are improving their roster, they're all going to go down 1 or 2 spots in the pecking order next year as opposed to this year, because they've got to get the top of the roster in a better state than it's been in the last year or two.
Absolute facts.
Right. Hey, I got something for you. Let's not go away from our the other prospect as well. Let's talk about a little bit about Zachary Ricochet and the possibility of he joining the Atlanta Hawks. I know only thing about the bigs with Sarr and Klingon, for me, I just wanted a new big. I think that's what it is for me. I mean, I already know, God forbid, you have to start Sarr or Klingon. I wouldn't want to do that, especially when you still do have at least a 00 who is a veteran. I wouldn't want to do that, but let's talk about Ricochet because he's an interesting prospect as well, who can bring some defense, some scoring, some ball handling as well. What are your thoughts about Zachary Ricochet?
Well, I mean, it just starts with having that kind of size at the wing is intriguing, right? Especially, and it's kind of funny, especially Wes Matthews was 6'5" and played like a lot of the power for them last year. It's like and especially when Jalen was out, they had to like really kind of patchwork, the forward position and things like that. So for me, it starts with that size. When you go kind of watch him, his play in France, a couple things. One is he was a pretty impressive scorer, for his age and the level he played at. So that's interesting to me. But when you look at self-creation, you're like, oh, I don't really know, like how much self-creation is there. How physical is he going to be? How strong can he be? He struggled with kind of the physical part of the game last year. Now he's barely 19 years old, so you want to think at 21 he's going to have a different body than he does at 19, and maybe it might be there. But I do think, I think the biggest thing teams have to figure out is the shooting progress was fairly recent. Like it was basically this past season is when the shot came along. So it's not like he has a 3-year track record of shooting at a high level. He has basically kind of this past season, he had a hot stretch for 2.5 months or so where he was shooting the ball at a high level. And so I think teams have to decide, he's going to be a good shooter, because if he's not a great ball handler and he's not, doesn't have all the skills you want in a secondary creator, the shot's going to have to be something he leans on offensively. And I think teams have to figure out he's going to be a high level shooter, or we're not sure he's going to be a high level shooter. And that'll determine, I think, how much they value him.
Indeed.
That's a great question, Chris. And I want to take that question just a little bit further. If you think about taking Zach over Sarr or over Klingon, how much does that factor in which direction the Hawks will go in free agency?
I don't know what you guys think, but for me, when I think about Sarr, when I think about Klingon, what I think about is how do they really feel about Okongwu? Like, do they think Okongwu is a starting level, like a guy they can rely on as a starting level center 82 games a year, right? And I'm high on his offensive. Like, he has a unique set of offensive skill. His touch is amazing. His self-creation for a center, kind of attacking the rim, is really, really good. But he's still kind of up and down on defense. He's not the strongest rebounder in his position. Part of that is size, right? And so I think with Okongwu, he's a guy like, I love the corner three development. I love the passing. I love the ball handling. I love all that aspect. But on defense, you're like, man, can we rebound? Can we get the collective amount of rim, protection that we need? And that's where you start to ask yourself, like, is that what we want to, really commit to as our starting center the next 2 or 3 years? As much as I think he fits what Quinn wants on offense, like to a T, Okongwu does, right? But on defense, I think if you're going to continue to build around Trey, if you're going to have a smaller guard, like Okongwu is a tougher fit, in that way. And so for me, whether or not they actually take a center to me, has so much to say about how they feel about Okongwu, right? I think that's the big one of the under appreciated factors here is the Hawks looking at Okongwu and saying, does he steer us away from drafting a center? Is he good enough to steer us away from drafting a center, or are we just going to say no? You're Iñaki, you're going to have to continue sharing the center position with someone else. You know, the way he has with Clint for a while. That's such a fascinating decision for me. But if they go wing, whether it's Ricochet or Matas, you know, or I think that says to me something about their feeling about Congo.
That's another good name people don't talk about.
Yeah, Matas.
I think he'll be a good addition as well.
Yeah, but it definitely
I mean,
right.
The thing about him, he's so aggressive. Like the contrast with Ricochet, Matas is so confident. He's so aggressive. He has no fear, and he has some skill. I mean, he's a young guy too. He has some skill development he needs to do, like all the rest of these guys do, right?
Right.
But for me, when you hear him talk about how confident and fearless he is, like you love that as a quality in the guy, right? When you hear him talk, you're like, he might be a star one day. He seems like, I can do it. I can do this. I can do that. I'm going to be able to do this. I'm going to be able to do that. You know, where some other guys are just a little less type A, we might say. And I don't like to totally discount people for their personality they have and stuff like that. But when you hear Matas talk, the confidence jumps out at you, and that means something to me, right? It's not the whole evaluation, but it does mean something to me.
Yeah, he got a little edge, a little attitude, and you definitely want to have that in your players, especially just in the league, because when you go to another new level, you already know you start over. So wherever he's done with the things that he's already done, that's cool. But once you get to the league, it's a new league, and you're starting over. The things you've done before, it doesn't matter. So you got to come in and prove yourself, and he does sound like he's ready to come in, and he has just. I believe today, I think they did a workout with him as well, too. So, you know, that's just the Hawks continually doing their due diligence. And I know you mentioned Ryan Smith earlier. Shout out to him because I believe he's now going to be joining the full-time staff, you know, in 2024-25 on the Hawks assistant coach bench. So that's going to be another thing, too, as far as development and trying to bring players along. I'm interested in seeing it. I really am. Smitty, you got anything else for us?
Just one more question before you get out of here. If you had to take a surprise pick to Wednesday night, who would it be?
A surprise pick. I mean, yeah. So I think a surprise comes from a trade back, right? I think if they stay at one, I think people might be surprised that they're still pretty open to SAR. You know, I think if it's Klingon, I think they feel like they need to maybe trade back if they can and get some other value. Ricochet, I mean, Jonathan Gavoni over ESPN keeps saying it's going to be Ricochet. Like he won't stop saying that. You know, it's like, well, he's plugged in. Like how much truth is there around that? But for me, I think Matas might be the surprise guy. And that I think if there are Hawks fans that are like, I haven't really looked at him because people haven't been talking about Hawks and Matas, right? Is maybe between Wednesday go have a look because that might be something that ends up happening. Reed Shepherd, I think Reed Shepherd's going to be awesome, but he's a small guard, and you're just adding to kind of the roster profile you have at that position already. It's a shame because I do like him a lot, and then Stephon Castle, the dude's going to be a defensive, like he's going to be, really, really good defensively, but I don't think he really fits what Quinn wants on offense. So for me, I still think I think SAR's in the mix. I think Klingon's there. I think Hawks would prefer to trade back if that's who they're going to end up with. I think Ricochet seems to play if they think Okongwu could start for them in the next 2 or 3 years and be good enough in that role. I think that's something I feel like we'll learn a lot about the next 2 days. And then for me, but it's not going to surprise me if kind of Matas becomes that surprise guy because he's a big wing who I think is going to project a lot of development, both offensively and defensively. And then just that hungry, confident, killer mindset he has might be the thing that swings a team like the Hawks in his way. So I'm ready for the draft to happen.
Yes, sir.
So we can kind of move the conversation forward. But at the same time, it's been a lot of fun to kind of be able to kind of dig into the class and kind of think what the Hawks are doing. But the reporting is so all over the place, and you hope that's a good thing. I know some people who are like, oh, this front office is, but I think if the Hawks are like, well, if the right trade back is there, we'll trade back. If the right, if it's not, we're going to take the best player for us. And I think when you hold the first pick, which happens so infrequently, you can't bank on when it's funny. I at my age, I'm like, will the Hawks ever pick number one again in my lifetime? Like, if I start doing the math, like, well, I don't know, And so I think you have to think very broadly and look at every option to extract as much value from this fortuitous kind of situation you find yourself in as possible. And I hope that all of the mixed reporting and all of the kind of the broad set of scenarios suggest the Hawks are thinking about every possibility, and we'll see what they do.
All right. Hey, man, I agree with you, Timothy. I want a big, man. I've been wanting a big the whole time, but we just got to see what happens, man. Ricochet is a realistic, and I believe, one of the reasons why is because, the front office did fly over there pretty quickly to go, check him out and bringing them in for workouts. I mean, I can't sit up here and just deny that it's not a possibility that Ricochet could go.
Oh, it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, man, definitely. Mr. Glen, I definitely appreciate you coming on and, just sharing your thoughts about the Atlanta Hawks. We're moving close to this draft, as we continuously say, because it is getting close. I mean, it's Monday, and Monday is almost over. So we just got one day in between, and then, it's going to seem like forever, the countdown, actually on Wednesday, getting to 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and so forth and so have you. Would you happen to be going to the Hawks draft party?
I am not. I live in the Seattle area, so I will be scrambling. Yeah, I will be scrambling to wind my workday down and trying to make sure, I'm like able to task switch over to the draft. So in a way, it's nice because I'm former military, so I go to bed early and get up early. So being on the West Coast helps me with my routine. I don't have to stay up till late. Like when the Hawks are on the West Coast, you're up till midnight watching the game, and stuff like that. So it works for me. But I'll be like, oh man, it starts in an hour. I gotta finish my work, And so that's kind of my normal routine here. But no, if I were in the area, I would definitely come and say hi to everyone and stuff like that. But yeah, my wife's family's out here. We made the move out here for her to be closer to her family a few years ago, and it's wonderful. Nice. But the one downside is I don't get to go visit in person with people like yourself and other people I really enjoy interacting with all the time too. So I have to kind of keep that digital. So for now.
Indeed, man, we're definitely going to have to do this again. I know. Regardless, let's just be honest. Regardless of who we draft, someone's going to be unhappy, and we'll be here to talk about it. And we definitely got to have you on. And man, KL, got to have him on again. It's been over a year since I know I last spoke to him as far as like on this type of platform. So definitely got to get his thoughts. Love his thoughts. Love his energy as well. And tell Brad Rowland, man, hey, what's up, man? Answer my emails. No,
I will give him some grief on your behalf, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's been too long, man. Brad has a great mind. He does great work over there on Locked On Hawks. Still a fan of his.
He does great work.
Yes, man. And it's just what it's all about, man. It's just fellowshipping together, putting our minds together, and trying to figure this thing out, and waiting on news, and then reporting on it. That's what it's all about, man. It's all fun, all in good fun. Love the relationships that we're building and meeting with people like yourself and just other content creators, meeting people in the chat. Everything is wonderful. I absolutely love this.
That's my favorite part of being plugged into is your word, like community fellowship, right? And that's really what this is about. I mean, is connection and just as people, giving each other space and making room for other opinions and viewpoints and things like that. So long as everyone's keeping it thoughtful, I love to kind of lean into that. But to me, the people level is the most important part of this, and there's so many wonderful people in this part of the Hawks, the community that I enjoy interacting with every single day. It's one of the highlights of my day every single day, and like I said, all the people who are bringing great content forward, Mikey and Tim over Ethos, Brad, you guys, and Bryce, and on and on and on, right? And
Right.
so I don't forget Edub. I mean, it's just we could go on and on, right? So just it's just
Right.
so it just brings you so much joy to see all of that, good content, and human connection, and it's just good people, kind of contributing and connecting. So I love that. That's what you guys are about, and as one of the reasons was easy yes when you reached out to come on and things like that, because you just want to make this community everything it can be.
That's all.
Agreed.
That's
Agreed.
it. That's all. Indeed.
Agreed.
Well, before you get up out of here, please, by all means, if you have anything coming up, plug it in. Let folks know where they can find you, sir.
Yeah, so at 8/10/29, we're going to record here in about an hour ourselves. We're going to try to get one tonight and then one after the draft on Wednesday. So it'll be fun for us to have a live, kind of a semi-live reaction on the podcast. I'm doing the player capsule series with Brad over in Locked On Hawks. Brad and I are about halfway through that. So I don't know when we'll pick it back up, because guys, like free agency's right around the corner too. Like it's like we're going to go straight into the and so but look for that series if you haven't seen any of those. Yeah, summer league. Yeah. I mean, the 4-week period where it's going to be draft, free agency, summer league, it's just going to go so fast, But I'm excited about it. On Twitter at Willis_Glen, come find me there. 8/10/29, Kevin, Tyler are awesome to do that work with, and like I said, I'd always like to promote myself if there's any of these other kind of content providers you haven't found yet. If you're like, Glenn, who was that you mentioned? Hit me up on Twitter. I'll point you their way, because there's we need to promote everybody that's working hard in this space. So yeah, but come find me if you want. But I also want to just do my part promoting all the great work other people are doing too.
And what it's about, sharing ideas, sharing content, and having a great time. That's what we do here.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Well, until next time, thank you again. We will definitely be in touch, and this will not be the last time you guys see Mr. Glen. Hopefully, next time you see Mr. Glen, maybe Mr. Kevin will be with him. You never know what'll happen. Just got to tune in to see what happens.
Right.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Glen.
Thanks, guys, for having me. Enjoyed it.
All right, now. Yes, sir. That was Mr. Glen Williams from ATL in 29. Again, does great work over there with Kevin and Tyler, man. I do like listening to those guys, man. They have great chemistry together, and that's what it's all about. Like he was just saying, and you already heard him promoting everybody. That's what it's all about, man. Promoting each other. Smitty, what you got before we get up out of here?
I ain't got that right now. I'm waiting on the draft, just like you, man. And trust me, we gonna give our thoughts on the draft pick, and we're going to try to break it down the best as we can. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But guess what? We're going to support the logo no matter what. Coming up soon, man, we're going to have Mr. Bob Rathburn on again soon. Between the draft and summer league, somewhere in between now. So y'all stay tuned to that Hawks Talk. And as for the Falcons and 95 North Sports crew, man, we're going to have something cooking up soon, man, because training camp finna start, and training camp battles, we got to talk about the roster. We got to give our roster projections. We got to give our camp battles. And trust me, there's going to be some interesting camp battles this year, because right here, going to have these boys fighting it out, and that's what I love to see. So stay tuned, man, because we still got a lot of content coming, man. And trust me, with the guests, we're not done. We're still working behind the scenes to bring y'all great guests to get these interviews in, to give y'all the insight as to what current and retired players are doing with their lives these days. So stay tuned with the 95 North Sports Machine crew, because we always working. And I thank Chris for this interview. He put in the hard work. So y'all please go to A1 Forever. If this y'all first time tuning in, or if y'all are returning subscriber, man, please go share his videos, share this live, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. So every time that we go live or he drops a video, you're going to get the great content that we bring you every single time we jump on this screen. But y'all know where to catch me, man. Smitty Sports Machine on YouTube at FatBoySlim_21. On Twitter, I'm always blowing that thing up. And, man, trust me, I like to have fun. I like to talk, man. So when you want great talk and you want to run across great sports talk, please go to Twitter at Fatboy Slim _21, man, because I throw out great topics, and I got a mailbag video coming soon. So Falcons mailbag, it'll drop probably tomorrow or Wednesday. So stay tuned for that as well.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff, man. I love to hear.
You there, Chris? I think he froze up on me. Hopefully he can come back in. But man, like I said, man, y'all please catch Chris A1 Forever, man. He's always doing this thing. Like I said, man, we all over here just working, man. So me, Chris, and Berto will be back on soon, man. We don't know how soon, but trust me, it'll be soon. But hopefully Chris can jump back in here, man, so he can close this thing out. Let me thank the people in the chat while I'm thinking about it. John Higgins, thank you for tuning in. RGA ATL for life. Southern Dog, D. Lawton, Seafish Run, thank you for tuning in. Mr. Angelo C. He says trade the pick for marketing. I wouldn't trade it for marketing, but they could get Capella and probably Future first. But yeah, man, thank y'all for tuning in, man. We always appreciate y'all jumping in, doing y'all thing, man, and supporting us. And I forgot Falcons production. Thank you for tuning in. That's the chat. But yeah, thank y'all for tuning in, man. Chris has jumped back in, man. He gonna close it out for us. And I told you I got your back, dog. Go and do your thing.
Yeah. Hey man, I appreciate it, man. You know what I'm saying? Internet ain't got no brain, so you know it is what it is. But hey man, as far as social media platforms go, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever they're calling it, and also TikTok, A1 Forever. Well, on TikTok it's the real A1 Forever Sports, regardless. On YouTube, man, come on over, man. We're trying to get to 1,000 subs and beyond. Right now we're close to 850, so just come on over and help your man get to 1,000 and beyond, man. Help me get out there in that algorithm so we can, you know, just continue to grow this platform. A1 Forever Sports.
We're gonna keep working till it happens, dog. Ain't nothing to worry about. Ain't nothing to worry about.
Yeah, man. I'm just staying focused. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's all.
But I tell you to find your peace today, y'all. Positive energy always creates elevation. Find your peace today. And for Smooth Smitty, Chris Tipmore, and thank you for special guest again, Mr. Glen Willis. We will holler that way.